Hey everybody, we should be live here. Now I'm doing a series of Hangouts under the name of Megalearning, which is actually a company I'm going to form. This is the first that you're going to see publicly. My name's Jim, last name's Losi. I'm kind of an old guy to be a college student, but I'm a college student at University of Utah. And I'm also working up there in a pretty cool student programming position where I get to play with Spark and Java all day long. And I got a good boss that teaches me a lot of stuff and tolerates my dumb questions. So I'm also interested in data science, machine learning, and R is pretty important for that. I'm going to just give you a little bit of background for a few minutes, and what we're going to do tonight is we're going to cover R, just like really gloss over the installation of R, just kind of show you what the basic command line REPL, the read, eval, print loop sort of interactive interface looks like. Then we'll go look at RStudio for a while. If my login, I'm running this in Windows. I've actually tried to do this, something like this a couple of times. Okay, let me do the summary first just for another 30 seconds, and we'll jump into some background, and then we'll get right into it. Let me go ahead and get on screen here too while I'm at it. Turn my camera on. There we go. So yeah, you're looking at my, this is my soon-to-be model railroad platform. There's a camera over here. I was kind of hoping the camera would be up there, but this is my screen right here. So like I said, my name's Jim, and I'll be helping you out here till 11 o'clock Mountain Time. This is so new, and I don't have a following on this, so I don't actually see anybody in the room right now, which is fine. If you do come in, I'll try to notice you. I do have the Q&A turned up here, but I don't. If I get kind of focused and forget to notice you, then I apologize. So yeah, finishing up summary, we'll then go look at RStudio Server, and then we'll actually look at Shiny. The last part of what I'm going to do is to show you, once you have RStudio installed, then you can install or you can set up something called Shiny. It just requires a couple of configuration files, and you can instead of presenting a static graph to people, you can give them an interactive graph or whatever you want to present to them interactively. Shiny is a really cool thing. It's a strange name. I hope the audio and the video is working out okay. The first time I did this was in Linux, and it seemed to work pretty good, but it had some rough edges with Linux, and I was the rough edge because I forgot to focus on the slides. So if you saw that from a presentation I did on November 21st at a conference, that's another hangout that we'll do at some point that covers a real broad survey of topics in machine learning and data science. We're not doing that. We're not talking about Hadoop tonight. We're not talking about Spark. We're not talking about well, no, I don't think I'm going to touch Python at all. It's really going to be focused on R tonight. Next week, I'm sorry, not next week, tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock in the morning Mountain Time, I'm going to do another presentation about Spark, and I'll just basically be showing you the real basic overview and installation parts of Spark. From there, we're going to see. I may be doing a presentation on a new technology called Tachyon. I'm just going to do a couple things on the computer while I'm talking here, getting things set up. So I may do something on something called Tachyon. Tachyon's an in-memory distributed file system. It's pretty cool. And if I could just get my slides to come up here, then I could actually turn them off. So give me a second while I deal with that. I'm going to start broadcasting my screen in a minute here. In fact, let me do that. Let me go ahead and start broadcasting the screen, and we'll get going into this in just a minute. Like I said, the main background is just that I've tried to do this a couple times. The second time I did it, the audio was just horrible. So here we are again, focused on R today. I have this website that, if you see me looking way over here, it's a little Chromebook that I have. It's a pretty cool. Well, let's see. I'm not on camera, so I'll show you that later maybe. But for 60 bucks, I got this Chromebook, and I can actually run Linux on it. And that's my monitor way over on my right side, which you can't see me looking at it anyways. This is a website that I have here, you see, and also just one little bit of background here. This screen that you're looking at is set to 1024 by 7, or I'm sorry, 1280 by 780, or whatever the miniature HD resolution is. I hope it's big enough for you to see things. I had it set at full HD, and it was just way too small. Like when we're looking at the, I hope you like green. I love a green. This just reminds me of an old VT100 terminal back like in the 70s or 80s. I'm 48, so I was actually around computers in the 80s. And if you look here, I just like this color. I hope you're okay with that. Let's go back and look at this website for a second. I have this megalearningllc.com site. I have, if you go there the first time, I have to update this. It used to be called Support ML, and now that I'm going to incorporate this company, I've moved it over, just basically moved the whole site over, and there's still a couple of loose ends. So if you get presented with this email thing, please go ahead and sign up for my mailing list. You could also do me a big favor and go to the YouTube account associated. If you're watching this later, you'll be watching it on a YouTube account. Please subscribe to that account. I need to get 100 subscriptions to be able to get a custom URL. Let's go ahead and just look real quick at the blog here. There's a blog that has a few different subjects. I have to break them down into pages by subject, but I've started some posts here on the programming community. That's my category there. This is WordPress. If you like WordPress, maybe I'll do a WordPress thing someday. If you want to prepare for this presentation, if you didn't catch this ahead of time, I have set up here R and RStudio installation part 1. I'm going to click in there and take a look. And I'm going to also try something out here. If I copy this, and then they have this thing in Hangouts called Showcase that is disabled. I have to figure out why that's disabled. So okay, rough edge. Sorry about that. But let's take a look. If you want to actually install R, come to this page. You can see the link here, and I think it's linked on my Google Plus page as well. And you just come through, and I have the instructions for you here. Mostly these instructions are for Linux. I'm running Windows right now. I pretty much always run Linux and Windows only when I have to. Not because I don't like Windows. Windows is really cool, but just most of the work that I do is in Linux. And if you go through here, these links don't really look like links, but they really are. You can download these 2 files. In fact, if you want to do this right now in preparation for the Shiny part at the end of the talk, that's the link right there. And it's just go to megalearningllc.com and then find the blog post for install RStudio. You come here, and these are actually links, believe it or not. You can right-click there and save it as, and then save it somewhere. And then you can right-click here and save this other file. And then it'll take you through the steps. Like I said, if it's for Mac or Windows, downloading R and RStudio is really pretty straightforward. You just have an installer to run. It's Linux where it gets a little trickier. And if you look down here, there's part 1 and 2. So that was part 1 with just some sort of warnings. So my favorite one is if you're not that familiar with Linux, when you type something and you hit the command line, it does it. It doesn't. If you RM a file, it's gone. I mean, unless you want to pay drive savers money to get it back. But unless you're using Unity or some X Windows or some graphical display and using the file manager with a trash can, if you're on the command line and you type RM, especially be careful if you ever type -RF on anything. That's going to really blow it away with no warning. Here's the second part of the instructions. I actually just ran the installation. Come on now. Okay, some more stuff about where you can get the software from, installing on Windows or OS 10, and then installing it in. I use Ubuntu for Linux. I actually have this remote. This is actually a remote session here. I accidentally was copying and pasting stuff. But if you look here, the basic thing in R, I'm scrolling up, if you can't tell, is, where's my command? Here it is, sudo apt-get install r-base. There's an r-base.core. If we go, I'm going to swap over here to the RStudio page for a second. This is the basic page for R, where you can download different things here, packages, and if you go look here, RStudio Server. Oh, I thought I had the page up here. It basically was explaining the different steps to install this. Here we go. So if you go to this page here, rstudio.com, and then products and RStudio, they have different pages that give the instructions on how to download for Ubuntu and Debian. I think they have instructions for other versions. Here we go. They have Red Hat. They have OpenSUSE. And so this is, like I said, rstudio.com. I happen to be on the RStudio Server page here. So again, if you're in Linux and you want to prepare for the rest of this presentation, you want to download R, then you're going to go and download RStudio. So let's look at the rest of this is RStudio Server though. In fact, I'm going to come back to this page a little bit later. What is this here? How to use, oh yeah, we don't need SSH. And just for what it's worth, if you have a Windows and a Linux machine, I'm just going to spend a very short amount of time on this. This is PuTTY. You can see I ran the installation here. It just goes through. Anytime you run an install, it just does a bunch of stuff. And it's kind of nice to not have to manually put every piece in place. But anyways, this is PuTTY. You can actually see I'm logged into it's a really old Toshiba laptop that's running Ubuntu 14. So it's called Tosh for Toshiba. Not a fan of Tosh 2.0 or whatever that was, just Tosh for Toshiba. So that PuTTY program will let you, log into a Unix system. What is it? cat-proc, or not, cat/proc/version, I think. Proc what? Sorry, just one second here. cd/proc. Okay. Oh, what am I doing here? I'm in PuTTY. Hang on a second. I think I lost my connection. I don't know what's happening here. Well, this is like the worst thing to do in the middle of a presentation, but you're going to have to give me a... Here we go. Oh, I feel so dumb. I just wasn't reading. I was in R. So once you install R, let's go ahead and jump right in here. We're actually going to cover R now. Once you install R, then on the command line, you just type R. It's really, really easy. And in Windows, I must have it installed here in Windows. Let's take a look. If I bring up my thing here and go R, I have RStudio, but I guess we can go to PowerShell. Here's PowerShell, and if I just type R, nope, that's not it. I never really try to bring up the REPL in Windows. So here's the REPL. It's called a read eval print loop. This is the most basic way to interface with R. You're never going to do this, because I'll show you in just a minute here a much better way to do this in RStudio. But basically in R, I'm in this read eval print loop. The thing that's good about R and Python also, and if you're familiar with Scala is a Java-like language, sort of. I mean, it's based on a JVM. The actual syntax is radically different because it's a functional language. It's much more it's not simplistic, but it's much simpler to express things in Scala. Anyways, R, Python, and Scala are the three things off the top of my head that have these interactive interfaces. So I mean, I'm going to do something a real snoozer here. X, and in R you use you don't use equals. You use this less than and dash to sort of point values into a variable. And then if I just say X, I don't even need to say print X. I can say, well, I'm not going to get into that. But I mean, it's really pretty basic, and so that's about all there is. I mean, you can do a lot of stuff here on the command line, but I always forget between Python and R whether it's a quit or an exit. Okay, but let's actually take a look here. I'm going to go back to the websites for a minute. We want to go into RStudio, and let's just look at where the downloads are for that. I have it downloaded. I just want to show you. When you go to the main RStudio site, there's RStudio. They have the stuff for Shiny here. We'll actually show you this at the very end, ShinyApps.io. And you can do all your downloads here. Just get the RStudio package. Once you download it, it's going to come up, and boom, there it is. Now, I did the first statistics class I've done in about 25 years recently at University of Utah. So I have some other projects from that class. I just want to show you some of the basics of the RStudio. This is called an IDE. If you're not, I have to assume people are coming from all kinds of different backgrounds. So if this is below your knowledge base, I apologize. But I want to explain some basics. So this is an IDE, which means an integrated development environment. You'll find this. There's people who are really hardcore programmers who really eschew these IDEs. You'll find that people on Macs use simple text, or I'm sorry, Sublime, not simple text. They use Sublime text. In Windows, I really like Windows. Excuse me. In Linux, I really like Emacs. I actually was always a VI guy, and then I just started using Emacs recently because my boss basically insists on it, and it is really a cool product. But that's for the hardcore people that really know what they're doing. If you're like the rest of the world, you're going to use, for our development, you're going to use RStudio, and here's why. The same command line that we saw here in RStudio is down in this. You can always rearrange your windows, but this is the default layout here. So in the lower left, I could do the same thing here. X is 5, and then X, and there it is. You could do an awful lot more complicated stuff, but when you're developing a program, this REPL window is going to be. I don't use it as much as I should. This is a really good place for doing things iteratively. If you have an idea of how to test something out, I'm more in the habit of going up here into the actual program and just running it up there and seeing if it works. But people that really do data science every day tend to use these interactive windows to prototype things and figure out what's going to work and then pop it into their program. I will show you in the upper right here. I ran a couple of these programs already. Let me actually let's kind of start from scratch. So I'm going to hit this little broom and clear out what's called the global environment. All these matrices and these variables that are set up. Am I sure I want to remove all objects from the environment? Can't be undone. Yes. And then down here in the lower right is, you don't normally see help here, but if you want to know about, let's say, QQ-plot, you just do QQ-plot and then hit F1, and over here it'll bring up the help. You can always click on this guy to make whatever you're looking at bigger, and then you can click here to make it really small, or click right here to make it regular size. I think we're gonna look at QQ-plot in a minute here. So we've looked at these two bottom windows. We've looked a little bit here. Let me just show you something. If I come here and I type X and I do this little less than and dash, and then let's be 17 this time. It'd be really fancy. Watch what's going to happen up here. I'm going to hit return, and this is really great. This is like a constant debugger. If you're used to using Eclipse, or if you're used to using IntelliJ or any kind of debuggers in other languages, you're only debugging while your program is running. But R keeps an environment going here. So when your program ends, this stuff does not go away. So it's really it's pretty helpful for developing programs. Let me go ahead and clear this out again, though. And I'm actually going to come back down here. I want to explain a couple things. One is I'm drinking coffee, so if you hear me quiet for 5 or 10 seconds, it's because I'm drinking some water or some coffee. And I don't see anybody else in here, which is cool because I'm just doing this effectively for the first time, and like I said, working out kinks, so I'm not having to focus too much on anybody asking questions. But I do really hope over time to build up a following on these, and just be able to reach out to people and do some learning and some teaching. I think people that are smarter than me on certain things are going to come into these rooms and teach me a thing or two, hopefully. Okay, let's take a look. In R, you have the basic R is installed, and then you have what are called packages. If you know anything about statistics, and if you're going to use R, you pretty much better know something about statistics. There's different tasks that you may want to do, and R is open source. RStudio is open source, and that means that anybody can contribute. So I have installed, off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you really which of these. I think ggplot is not a pre-installed package. I think I had to download that. JSON Lite, I believe I had to download. I think if you say Magritter, I think is how you say that. Let's see. Well, Shiny. Now this is one we're really going to get into later. ShinyApps, and ShinyJS. You basically, there's a couple of different ways to install packages. You can click on install here. If you know the name of the package, let's say it's I don't know, somebody shout out a package name. ggplot, we saw that earlier. And so let's do ggplot2. So I'm going to type in ggplot2, tell it to install here. This is basically like extensions. If you're used to using a browser, it's the same concept as an extension. You can add on functionality. And so I'm going to click on install, and you'll just see this is how you would do it from the command line. If you didn't want to go through the graphical thing, you would type install.packages ggplot2, and it's downloading it, and I was expecting a little more text there, but it looks like it's there. And here's how we can be sure, is there's another command called library. And as I showed you, if you don't know what something's going to do, you just F1 it. Or, the other way is just go back to your browser here. And Google knows everything for good or for bad. So if we go to Google, if I type ggplot, I'm going to show you something here. Okay, now this is a little more unusual. There's actually a website for these guys, so you can go here. There's probably a good tutorial. There's documentation available here, a mailing list. Okay, so this is a pretty this is a really good graphing package. The built-in graphing in R is okay, but some of these packages that extend graphs are really awesome. So this is kind of unusual that it has an actual website. But you're also going to find, I'm trying to see if I can find, here's CRAN. That's the repository for all the R packages. So CRAN, rproject.org. That's probably just going to give us the same. Oh, why is it? Okay, it wants to download. Is that a PDF? Okay, that's different. A lot of times when you're on the R project thing, you're just going to get the same help file that's down here. Let me pick another package to look at here. Let's just say, oh, I don't know. Well, how about just a command? How about like rnorm? Does anybody know what rnorm does? We'll find out in a second here. So let's say we go look up rnorm. It's funny, just put the letter R in there and it really narrows your search down. So there's some different websites here. You'll also find a lot of stuff on Stack Exchange. If you've never looked at Stack Exchange, you should look there. This Inside R is a fairly helpful site, but all it tends to really do is just reprint the basic help file. If we go back into RStudio, and if I do the same thing here where I'm going to go, excuse me, I'm going to say rnorm and get some help on it. It talks about the normal distribution. I'm gonna actually introduce you. We're gonna go back and look at the library function in a second here, but I'm gonna introduce you to a couple different things at the same time. So follow with me here. You notice that this help file here is the same help file as on this website, Inside R. Now there's some other R websites. These guys have, I think, just the documentation also. It's kind of funny to see in a little uglier format. So these guys are just putting up the basic documentation as well. Some Switzerland site. You'll find when you're searching in R, there's several different sites that are going to come up on a regular basis. I'm not seeing it right now, but there's RTutor is a good one. RBloggers is a really great site. You should definitely subscribe to RBloggers. These guys what's the word? When somebody rebroadcasts blog posts from other sites, I can almost think of the word, but I can't get it right now. But basically, if you subscribe to them, every day you're going to get about 6 links to some pretty cool stuff. Sometimes they seem to get into politics, which I wish they would stay away from. But hey, nobody's perfect. So there's a lot, and then this is actually talking. This is a good background on rnorm and other things related to normal distribution functions. So let's go off on one more tangent here, and then come back to the library and checking packages, and then we'll look at the wider aspects of RStudio. When you look at R, if you have, I'll just tell you my experience. I took a stats class 25 years ago. I took introduction to statistics. I didn't like it. I was taking calculus at the same time in college. I was really good at calculus and trigonometry and real math, as we like to call it. You notice the pure math people are kind of a little bit snobbish about statistics. They don't look at statistics as real math, and from their perspective, I suppose it isn't. But then from the statistics perspective, we actually get stuff done and don't just sit around and think of really abstract theoretical things all day that only have an application once every 50 years. Okay, I probably shouldn't have said that. But anyways, if you don't have a knowledge of statistics, this is the point that I'm getting at. If you don't have a knowledge of statistics, then when you look at a page like this, what the heck is a normal distribution function? I had no idea really up until about 3 months ago, and then I took my second stats class in my life, which was calculus-based statistics. And now I know all about these distributions and a bunch of other stuff, p-values and z-scores and t-tests. And if you don't know statistics, R is going to look really weird. It's not going to make any sense. If you do know statistics, you're going to realize that R is really it's more of a statistical package than a programming language. I mean, it is a fully featured programming language, but not ultimately as powerful as like C# or Java or C++. But you can do quite a bit with R, and it has some unique data structures that are really helpful and a lot of great packages. But okay, let's go back into RStudio and let's move back to the next subject. I wanted to show you this whole idea of packages. We kind of looked at installing a package. We kind of looked at how to get help and the fact that there's some different websites out there to help you out. Stack Exchange is really useful. Just tag your questions with R. Now, when we look at the actual packages, let's say I want to find out if BitOps is there. If I'm in a program, I can do a library, and notice it actually gives me the different options here, and over here it gives me the usage. It's pretty cool. You don't have to guess at what the parameters are. It's like any good IDE. All the usages are right there. But what I want to do is I'm going to get the help on this real quick. And it's loading, attaching, and listing of packages. So you notice there's these two commands. If you're writing a program, I have a program somewhere that uses this. I forget which one it was off the top of my head. But if you're writing a program that requires a package, you don't want to just automatically download it over and over again. You want to check and see if it exists first. And so if I'm remembering off the top of my head, the way you do it is just to say library, and let's say ggplot2. And I think if it's, okay, so it says it was built under R version 323. What R version am I on here? Oh, this is an older R version, isn't it? You can always check your version of R by going to About RStudio. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, that's R version 323. And what version of R am I running here? Well, it doesn't matter too much. So the point being that you can run library and find out if a package is installed. Let's go library. I don't know, how about brew? Okay, and it's, I mean, I think this is confirming that it's in there. I'm not used to seeing these messages that it's warning me where it was built, but that's just giving you a little bit of a heads up. If you're writing a program that requires a package, you can just check for its existence and then use some different options in here to download it if it doesn't exist. Requires another one, but I tend to use library. Well, let's take a look at the actual, where the rubber hits the road here. This is the actual programming environment. You're going to write, R scripts in here. Obviously, this was for a lab course that I took along with this the stats class, and it's like any language. It has line numbers and it has for loops there, and there's if statements. And let's take a look maybe at this one here, and let's take a look at comparing a Poisson distribution with a binomial distribution. I'm creating these vectors, and I'm going to pick this moment here to explain this, why we're not using an equal sign. It has to do with scope. I'm pretty much going to let you look that up on your own, but scope, if you're not familiar with what scope is in programming, then you really need to understand what it is. And this isn't the place to teach you that, but scope, just SCOPE, you can look that up. If you are a programmer, then you already know what I mean. If off the top of my head, I think equals has more limited scope than this, but I always use this. Even if you look in the Google, this is always kind of fun. Come over here and look at Google R style guide. And they have, obviously, a lot of people like Google using R if they have to publish a style guide. And so you can look through here, and it's actually, where is it here? Identifiers, assignment. Okay, here's their rule. Use this guy, not an equal sign, Y. Well, they don't tell us why right here. You know what? I want to actually answer this for you. I'm kind of having a senior moment. I was going to do this on Saturday morning, but I decided to do this late Friday night. Let's see. So this is to show you the research process here. So R difference between the and the. Oops, if I could just type. And equals, obviously people have, well, you notice there was also, look what else came up, difference between require and library, difference between matrix and data frame. So here, Stack Overflow, it's a duplicate, it looks like it's been asked a bunch of times. And so basically the operators assigned into the environment which they're evaluated, the operator here can be used anywhere, whereas equal is only allowed at the top level. Oh, I actually didn't get that. Okay, so you can't use equal in lower levels. That's interesting. Let's see if this other answer agrees with that. Well, I'll leave this as homework for the reader. So let's go back into R and actually run a program. I've got this program. I think if I remember correctly, this looks at the different distributions on it, like looking at the normal distribution of these different vectors. If you look at these vectors, it's going to make 50. If I'm not mistaken here, well, let's actually run it. I'll show you something pretty cool. Let me take this off. This is a good command right now. If you're following along and you're going to do any kind of plotting, you should basically copy this command down, because this is going to set up a 2x2 grid for putting plots. If you do plots in the window down over here, that's where like the plots. See, I already did a couple of plots there, which we'll recreate those in a minute or 5. If you only have the normal par, I forget what par stands for. It stands for something about the window that the graph is showing up in here. If you have a normal part, it's just 1 by 1. So as soon as you do another plot, it erases your old plot. This is going to give us 4 plots. So let's see. We're supposed to create 3 probability vectors. So dbinom, well, what does dbinom do? Let's click on it and hit F1. I mean, basically, it's going to create. Dbinom is X size probability. Oh yeah, okay. So let's just run through and do this. When you're in, I'm going to show you a few more of the features here of RStudio. When you're in here, you can actually run these lines one at a time. The way to do it is just Control Enter, and I think, is that on this menu here? Yeah. Run selected line is Control Enter. Rerun previous is Control Shift P. If you want to source the entire file, if I just come in here and make a change and just save it, then it doesn't actually run the file unless I click on up here. If you look, there's source with echo run. Here we go, source on save. You can click that, and then every time you save it, it's going to run it. Take a liar out of me. Let's just see here. Oh, because I didn't click on it there. Now it's clicked, and when I save, you see it actually ran my program there. This program's obviously only outputting 1 graph. So you know what? For this program, I'm going to turn this off. We just want one parameter, and then we're going to use the little broom down over here in the graphs to clear this out. Yes, I'm sure I want to clear this. And so let's do this again here. I have source on save turned on. I'm going to go ahead and save, and it's going to run it. And there's a cute little graph. And you notice what it does. It's actually running a command down here of source, with the file name. That's not all that useful, and you can actually, I don't tend to keep that turned on because I can actually just do a Control Shift S on the occasions where I do actually want to run it. There is another cool set of things here about run region. I don't really use those very much, but if I'm going to run a region, I just tend to step through with my favorite, which is Control Enter, which just runs the current, or it runs the line that you're on basically. So watch the box down here. It's gonna print out this comment, which you do comments with a hash mark or pound sign there, and then this is actually going to run. Oh, and let me just clear out the environment. A lot of times you want to clear your environment in between runs and even clear the graphs, so you can make sure it's doing something new and not just using. So let's go back up here again. I'm going to hit Control Enter and run this line, and there's a vector. It has these random numbers in there. Oh, now that's interesting. I guess for class purposes, you can actually run the help file as a command. You probably would never want to, but you can. Let's go back to plots down here. I'm going to run the next line here. I'm stuck on that line. Let's see. Plots there. And then we're going to make this next vector, and you see that the vector 100 shows up here on the right. And I'm going to make one more vector, and then we're going to do a Poisson on that. And then we're going to actually start doing these C-binds are actually making matrices out of these vectors. So we're using, as it says in the note here, using C-bind to create and display a matrix of the probabilities. So as soon as I do that, you see this matrix gets made up here. You can actually you can view the matrix. You see if I clicked on RStudio, really has a lot of neat little bells and whistles. If you click on this little guy here, you'll notice down here in my command window it did view vec matrix 1, and then up here is my matrix. So that's pretty cool. And R has a lot of neat functions too. There's a names function where you can get the names of the headers of like the labels on a column. There's a lot of cool stuff. R really has thought a lot of things through. I'm going to make this next matrix here. You notice I'm just back in my program, stepping through with Control Enter, and you notice as I do it, these variables keep on getting filled in. And now we're going to look at the probability function of the. Oh, we're using matplot here. I forgot that we did this in class. Wow, cool. So if you want to, you can contact me if you want to copy these programs. I might post them. I don't have them posted right now. I have them in a repo, but it's a private repo right now. So watch, now here's a key line matplot. And that makes this pretty cool graph here. And actually type BS is kind of a funny one, but it doesn't mean that. I'm going to click on this and do an F1. And the B is where is it here? B is a bar and S is I forget. Type. Here we go. Well, you have to go look them up somewhere else, I guess. They don't. Here we go. It's C plot for all possible types. Here we go. A B is both. Okay, points and lines, and then the S is other steps. Well, I don't want to take too much time to look this up right now, but you get the idea. These graphing functions. We'll take a look at another, and this is it for this program, right? Yeah. Let's take a look at this program here. I'm again going to sweep out my global environment there. Actually, it's got all these. You can look at the environments for all these packages, but I just always stay on global myself. Let's go back to plots and let's sweep that out. You notice that this program is using the old. It's storing the par in an old .par, and then it's at the same time setting a new one. So this is kind of a. It's not all that intuitive that this would work, but when you assign the new one, it actually returns the old one. We're using the C function. It's kind of like paste. C just I guess it's the reverse of cut. It's like copy, or it just puts all these numbers together into what's called a vector. A vector is the most basic. So here, let me run this here. I'm gonna step through. You notice the par gets changed. So we can actually look at this at the old par, and then coming back to my program window, I'm gonna run these two. I've got these two vectors now. And it actually shows you their type number. R does have types. You do sort of explicitly, like when you're making a matrix or making a data frame, you're explicitly saying what type you want. But generally speaking, R is going to figure out. I mean, you notice up here on the left, I didn't tell these that these are numbers, but R just figured out that they are. I'm going to show you something. Let's just divert for a second here before we go in this program. One thing that's really interesting about R, and this is not like object-oriented programming. If you took some CS classes anywhere, or some basic maybe Python, but if you took Java or C++, you're used to having to iterate through an array to tell it. Let's say we want to double all these numbers. You're used to having to iterate through that, and I sure hope this works. It's been a long time since I've done this, but if I have L, then there's L. If you look down the lower left-hand window now, and then if you want to double it, you just go L times 2, and boom, there it is. Now R, okay, yes, R is actually iterating over all those elements. You're not saving any time performance-wise, but you never have to tell. You're almost never going to tell R that it has to look at all members of a set like this. Now, when I say set, I'm using that sort of informally. It's not like a set structure like in Java, for example, or C, C++. But R knows that you mean to multiply every member by 2. If I say L plus 200, then there's the original L, and I can actually combine those. L times 2 plus 300. You get the idea. It's going to automatically assume that you want to iterate through every element of that vector. So that's just sort of an R approach to life that you'll get used to as you work with it over time. I don't know what else. I'm just going to run through this program, and then we're going to set up RStudio Server, and then we'll go look at. Well, actually, we'll probably do Shiny first, and then if there's time, I don't want to go much past an hour, but if there's time, we'll look at RStudio Server more at length, and if not, we'll just run through it real quick. Let me see if I'm still connected to my little Linux box. There I am. Cool. I'm going to do something real quick. So we're on the Linux box. I don't know why. Here, I was going to show you something before, and I just was being stupid and trying to do this in R and not on the shell. Cat proc-version. Wow, I'm having a senior moment again. What's the other one? Cat proc-. I know if you're watching this, you're screaming it at me. It's the one that shows you the hardware type. I can't. Just ls/proc. And I'm just going to say right now, if you don't know Linux, you better learn Linux. If you're gonna be around these data science and R, even Python type of stuff, you're really going to need to know Linux at some point. If you look in something like the proc directory, like I just did, I mean, ls is pretty obvious. It's listing, and then these are just like folders or directories, but it's on a command line. And this is actually stuff that you'll never really deal with mostly. Where's the I'm going to give up in a second here, but I forget what the there's version. Come on now, IO ports, interrupts, CPU info. There it is. Cat/proc. You're going to laugh when you see this. This is an old laptop. Okay, so I've got a genuine Intel dual T2390 at 1.86 gigahertz, but these are pretty old. This is like a Core 2 Duo. Yeah, it's a Pentium R. So, anyways, you get the idea here. More interesting stuff. You can CD to your home directory. What have I got hiding in here? Not too much. I don't really do much with this machine. But let me get the download for RStudio Server working in the background here, and then we're going to look at wrapping up in R. We'll look at Shiny. Let me just do this here real quick here. RStudio products, RStudio Server. I don't want Server Pro, I just want Server. Is it Server Pro? No, I don't want. See, they have paid versions, which I don't want. It's going to be lazy here. RStudio Server, download, Linux. Download RStudio Server, okay. We're on Debian. I'm hoping they're giving me something called a wget. We started out looking at this page, so it's giving you the how to install R. Here we go. So I want to download and install RStudio Server, open a terminal window, execute the following commands. Oh, gotcha. Okay, so they want GW core. Okay, that kind of makes sense. So let me get that started here. It took me a long time. I've been using Linux actually since 1990. I mean, I've been using Unix since 1990 and Linux since about 1992 or 1993. I got away from it for a few years, but it took me until like just a week ago to realize that you can do, instead of Control C and Control V, I wonder if this works. This is actually putty, so this probably won't work. But if you're in Ubuntu, you can do Control Shift, no, like not Control V, but Control Shift V. Yeah, it doesn't work here. Here it's still a right-hand click of the mouse, or right button click. And let me put my password in there. Oh, I can't type, I guess. There we go. Okay, I'm gonna let that run. What was the next step here? I'm just getting what's going in the background, because I think this download, even though I have a pretty fast internet connection, I hope it doesn't mess with the quality of the audio or video on the Google Hangout here. Okay, that's done. So now I'm just right-clicking. wget is just what it sounds like. It just goes out and gets stuff from a URL. So it's going to do it here. And yeah, that's going to take a little while. Well, not that long. My connection's doing pretty good. So what, if you multiply that times 8, it's about 50 megs a second. That's pretty good. Okay, that's good. And then let's just do this one here. Yeah, we want AMD 64. So these are the steps to install RStudio Server. I mean, really, you're going to go to that web page and you're going to, yes, I want to install the software package. No, I downloaded it for nothing. Well, I guess they have to ask. Okay, that's running. Let's go back to RStudio. So, R has a lot of interesting commands. Let's just give you a little more exposure. I'm not really trying to teach you all of our programming right now. The whole goal of this Hangout was just to show you the environments and kind of run through the installation. And I'm going to just step through this program. So options actually tells it to only display 4 decimal places. We're going to get the mean. I mean, the mean, if you're not familiar, is the average. It's just like statistics people try to be fancy, so they can't say average. It's too many syllables, I guess. So we're basically going to get the mean of these 2 vectors and store it in L-mean and P-mean. So let's do that. And you'll notice as soon as watch this window up here, as soon as I do that, I've got L-mean and P-mean. I mean, if you're a statistics person, that's actually pretty handy, because being able to just go on the command line and I can actually just say, let me say I'm going to copy this here, and I think this is going to work. I haven't tested this yet, so forgive me. But I'm going to say mean, and then what do I want the mean of? I want the mean of this. And look, it just, well, it rounded it off, so that's not good. But basically, you can just do stuff right on the command line, so it's pretty convenient. Let's go. We already did this, but let's do it again for fun. Yeah. Why is there? Oh, I must have a bug here. It's supposed to be L-mean. This is supposed to be P-mean. Actually, if you notice, if you start from the very beginning and type P, Come on. Oh, you have to type 3 characters. That's not that helpful on a 5-character variable name. LME, there, LMean. And it'll find, when you have a lot more variables, that's a very handy function. You know, I don't know what this, yeah, okay. I see what happened. I actually should have done this differently here. Let's put this back. And then, oh, there we go. Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm getting off on a tangent here. So let's just run these again here. So now we've got LSD. I know that sounds like a funny variable name, but it stands for standard deviation of L and standard deviation of P. We're going to cat. Cat is kind of like the print statement. You notice now it's not printing that little, like if I just do L down here in my REPL, if I just do LSD, it's going to give me the little 1 next to it, which gets kind of annoying. But if I say cat LSD, which would be a funny thing if a cat was on LSD, sorry, cat lovers, you don't get the 1. So cat's handy. There's some other functions for printing. I mean, there is actually a print function, right? I mean, there's print as is. There's all these pretty cool print options here. I mean, this is giving you a better idea right here. If you're not familiar with IDEs of the power, you know, if you don't know off the top of your head, which I didn't, I actually didn't know that print had that many options. I never use print. But if you type something in, you know, if you're trying to use, you know, qnorm, I guess that doesn't have any options to it, so it's not going to come up with anything. But print will give you all these different options, and so you can kind of like scroll through them and see, like I showed you before, you can look at all, probably the most used thing this is for is to see what the arguments are. And as it says here, you can always press F1 for additional help. So we don't have a table to print. But let's go back to our program. Let's run these guys again here. So we got the mean, we got the standard deviation. Let's get the length of these guys stored. Let's go print out the length. Now we're going to actually start doing some plotting here. And you know, this was I forget off the top of my head, this was some study of something about women while they're lactating and after they're lactating. You know, a lot of data science is related to biology, so there's some biology for you. QQ-norm, it's going to do a plot here. The whole point is to see if it sticks close to a certain line, to see if it's a normal distribution. So we're plotting L, and we're going to give it this X label. This is, you know, these are options. So X label and Y label. So when I do this, there's our QQ plot. And you know, those are it's going to be pretty easy to fit a line to that data. So it's probably going to come up and say that it's normally distributed. You notice there's our X label and Y label. Let's run QQ line is the, I have to look and see. I forget if it's linear regression. And here we can find out just by hitting F1. Quantile plots, QQ norm. Where's QQ line? Oh, well, it's not going to find it in the right window. So here we go. Find in topic, QQ line. QQ line adds, oh, it was right there in front of me. QQ line adds a line to a theoretical by default normal plot. Actually, I guess I better go learn some more statistics because I'm not really sure what that's doing. So I guess it's just finding out if it fits in the first and third quantile. Well, that's not linear regression, so unless it is. Let's go ahead and there's our plot. Let's do another plot. And you notice this is the effects of early in the program. We set the par to be 1 row and 2 columns. And so you see the effects of doing that. Let's do the QQ line on there. So that's, and you see that from a statistical standpoint, the data fits the line pretty well. Then we're going to do a t-test. Let's see what we come up with here. And now the t-test here is just giving out some statistics down here in this window. So a lot of times this is what you're doing for your analysis, is you're coming up with stuff in the graphical window and then doing things in the text window as well. And then the very last line of this program is one more t-test, and the t-test gives off all this information. And you know, I hope that gives you a pretty good idea. I'll show you one last thing here. I should get better at this. I don't do this. Git. I use Git all the time in Java. I know Git pretty well, but I never use it with R, and you should. Okay, let's let's actually go take a look. Let me check in on my Linux installation here. Okay, that's running. Oh, and it says, look, it says it actually started RStudio Server for us. So we're gonna do this real quick, and then we'll do Shiny. Shiny is really just gonna take a couple of minutes here. What time is it? Oh, we got 10 minutes. Okay, and I might go a little bit over time, but I'll try not to. Okay, so I installed RStudio Server. Well, let's say for some reason, let's say you have a Linux box that you have control over, but you're in a corporate environment where you don't have admin rights for your Windows machine. Maybe, for example, there's a bunch of reasons you could do this to install for a bunch of people all at once and not have to maintain an R installation on a bunch of machines. This is going to give you RStudio, but in a browser window. Now it says that the process is 9205, but what port does it listen on is the question. So because it should be running in a web server now. So let's see. I mean, it might be 8080, but I don't think so. Let's go take a look. I'm on a local network here, so this is a address behind NAT. So 10.11. I don't think it's just going to be on port 80 now. So if you're not familiar with what I'm doing here, the average website broadcasts on port 80. 8080 is a port for what's called HTTPS secure. Let's just go Google this here. What port does RStudio Server use? Oops, user. It probably was right there on the page in front of me and I didn't see it. Come on now. 80. Sudo RStudio. Well, let's try this out here. This is kind of what you get into with Linux. There's actually a little fancier way I could do this. Okay, so it's restarted. I'm kind of hacking at it right now. I mean, this is not really the way to do it. But let's go to my PowerShell here. This is the Windows command line. I want to make sure I can actually ping that. Ping. Here, I've got it right there. If you hit the up arrow, you get your previous commands. So let's ping that. Okay, I can ping it. Coming back to the browser, so let's try that again. Let me put HTTP in front of that and see it. It should know. 10.11. Huh. So I'll dig into this here. I want to show you this though. It's pretty key. So bear with me here. If you don't know Linux, maybe you'll learn a couple things from this hacking. We will do Shiny. Shiny is going to be really neat, but it really doesn't take very long to demonstrate Shiny. Okay, so I'm going to I don't want PowerShell. I want to get to my Linux box here. Netstat. If you just go netstat. That's kind of hard to look at. There's a lot of stuff in there. And then if I do a netstat -a, it gets really hard to look at. But what you do in Linux is when you have a big list, you do a pipe. This is called a pipe. So the bang bang, the 2 exclamation points reruns the last command. Let me do this a little easier way here. I just hit the up arrow, I get my last command. I do a pipe, and it's going to redirect the output of this command to whatever I type here. And here I'm going to do, I should do an fgrep, but I'll just do a grep. And so it's running on port 80. So that's everything that has an 80 in it. I don't see R running here. So hopefully you're finding this educational. I thought this was just going to pop right up, and it's not for me. Let's take a look at something here. So there's an Etsy RStudio. You say that is Etsy if you're not a Linux person. It's not etc. It's Etsy RStudio RServer conf. So let's go take a look. And this is good because I'm trying to show you configuration. So you're going to get to see a little bit of the configuration here. So we're going to cd change directory to the /etc. So it's from root to etc. And that's where all the configuration stuff tends to be in Linux. And then we're going to go more. I like more. And RStudio. Now you notice I didn't type all that. I just typed RST. Actually, if I'm going to type RS, and I'm going to hit the tab key, and there's more than one thing that's matching. So if you have more than one thing that matches, it just shows you a list. And now I know if I type a T, I'm going to get more unique. And I can't really more a directory. That's actually a directory because of the slash after it. So that means there's stuff in there. So I'm going to hit tab again a couple times, and it's going to show me what's in that directory. And it's rserver.conf. I'll just type it out. Well, I'll show you rserver. And it finishes. I keep on hitting tab when you're hearing that tapping. And the server configuration file is empty. That's cool. After installation, it accepts connections on 8787. Oh, you all saw that and were screaming at me for the last 3 minutes, right? 192.168.10.11. 10 is the one we're on. And then if you don't know this, just forgive me, experts, but if you're trying to get to a different port, it's like a PO box and at an address, or I don't know how you want to look at it. No, I don't want to improve my search experience. You type a colon. Colons have a lot of different uses, and this is one of them. So 8787. And then if you check this out, what is the default? I've not installed RStudio for a while, so forgive me. RStudio default user is, oh, well, I know what it wants. It just wants the user from the Linux box. So Jim, now my password, and thankfully you can't see that. And let's not remember that. Yeah, whatever your user is on the Linux box is what it's looking for. And then look at that. It looks suspiciously like RStudio. It is RStudio, but this is actually in a web browser running on a different machine altogether. I think if I say open, it's not, well, this is local here, right? No, this is the Linux box, right? So, you're not going to be able to open local files this way. Why not? That's interesting. Desktop. Yeah, I guess that's sort of a downside to it, is that you're not looking at your local files. You're looking at, what's on the server. But, it's the same thing. I can come in here and type my famous x, oops, equals 17 and x, and there it is. So, we just looked at this. I'm not going to rehash all this. As soon as you do a new script, you'll get that fourth window. You notice that now it shoves this window down and brings this window up here. And you could type a program, and it's pretty cool to use R. You could actually set this up and use this to your advantage in a lot of different ways. But I'm going to close this for now, and we're going to look at Shiny. When you install Shiny, I have the instructions here on this page, and yeah, it's 10:58. We're going to go a few minutes over. Forgive me, but this won't take very long at all. So I told you on this last page to download these files, server.r and ui.r. Basically, if you have the right software installed, and you open these two files, RStudio recognizes that and gives you the functions to publish it. I'm going to come down here and go to the other page of instructions. You'll notice that you're not seeing the link here, but I have a link about Anaconda. If you're going to install R, you may want to look at installing Anaconda. If you want to be a data science type, that'll give you a lot of Python packages. If you're in Linux, there's always a default Python installed, but it's nice to get all the packages. So we come through here and show about how to set up your path, how to set up, okay, now launch RStudio and install the Shiny package. So basically the package is called Shiny. Now you notice that when it's being given its proper name, it has a capital S, but the package name does not have a capital S. In fact, you know what? I have Shiny installed here. I can go library, Shiny, and it's going to tell me it was built. Let me try that require. Come on. And so I guess it knows it's installed, and we can verify that. We saw this before. We went over here to packages and looked, and there's Shiny. So you need to get Shiny installed. ShinyApps and ShinyJS are something a little different. You'll want ShinyApps, but basically you'll notice up here there's no, I only have these template files open for my class. I don't have anything that shows a way to display these as an application. As soon as I go, and here, let me see if I actually have these available. Recent files. Okay, there's server.r. And I'm going to close these other guys out. Don't save. Don't save. Okay, I have server.r, and actually, it usually doesn't do this on your first time, but I guess once you've set this up, then it knows to put up this run app button that wasn't there before. But let me go ahead and open up UI.r as well. Come on. And these are the two components. Now notice that you have, what I'm going to show you here is actually from the R Shiny examples. So if you want to see some cool stuff, go to R Shiny examples, Shiny gallery there. And we are going to run the one here about k-means example. K-means is a clustering algorithm from machine learning. And then Iris is actually a built-in data set in R. So I forget exactly how to access it. I don't think typing Iris is going to do much here. Oh, it does. It actually prints the whole data set out for me. Yeah. So, an iris is a flower, and sepal length and petal length are flower type things, and species are flower type things. So you have this built-in data set. There's several data sets built in. There's a population, I think is what it's called. Is that right? Population? No. That's probably not right. I forget what it's called. There's like a population-related database. Well, now that I have run app, let's look at the options here. Run in window, run in viewer pane, run external. So these are just going to run it locally, either within RStudio or on the local browser. Let's say run external and click on run app. In a moment, the key things to look at here, server is the one that contains the actual logic of the program. If you're familiar with MVC, this is sort of the controller and model part of things. They don't really split it into three parts, or just two. And then the UI.r is the view part. So what the key thing I want you to look at here is that this function here in server.r, where it calls iris and it calls for these values, it's being run through something called reactive. This reactive is the thing that tells Shiny that you want to have this thing update on a regular basis. So let me just kind of show you in here. This sets up a header panel and a sidebar panel and a main panel. If you've ever done any work with like Swing or AWT or what's it called in C#, Visual Basic, whatever, Visual Studio, but basically the GUI part of Microsoft.NET, they have the same kind of concepts of panels. So when you run this and click on Run App, sure, go ahead and actually don't save, because I probably put a typo in there. And it comes up and it says, oh, can't find the function lib shiny UI. That's not good. Let me see something here. Can I run it in the window? This is embarrassing. Lib shiny UI. Why can't it find the function lib shiny UI? Sorry, give me just a minute here. I am going to have to do a little. So here, I'm demonstrating. Yeah, this was intentional. I'm demonstrating the research process. Lib shiny. I have not run into this before. I've just been able to run this before, but I haven't run this in Windows for a while. It's a library called Shiny, right? Shiny UI. Let me just try something here real quick. This doesn't work, and I'll show you this some other time. I apologize. I can get to the punchline here and show you something called ShinyApps.io though, but this is supposed to pop this up in a browser. Library. I didn't think this was a separate package. What's the error message? Lib shiny UI. No, that's not a package. That's a function. Well, egg on my face. Sorry, I didn't test this ahead of time. I really thought I had this running. I know it runs on my Linux side. So, but kind of where I want to go with this anyways is there's this publish application. You have different ways to publish it. If you look into it, you can set up your own server. This group of people and I were a team in a data science contest recently. It was called the Global Data Competition here in Utah. We actually won. It was kind of cool. I got something called a Pico cluster, which I'll demonstrate that for you some other time. And you can publish this to different interfaces. Now, I'm going to just jump ahead and just show you our pre-published one, and then we're going to wrap this up because I'm over time, and I apologize for being over time. There's a website called Shiny, if I could just type ShinyApps.io, and here's the main site. And if I log in, let's see here. I forget which one I used, so I'm going to do this a little differently. I go to ShinyApps.io, and then we installed this one. The guy who was our statistician was named Paul, and I was trying to be cute, so I called it Paul's Reality. Haha, I used an R. And so let's go here and take a look. And anybody can go look at this. I'll have to remember my login, though, to actually log into the panel. So this is the project we did for our thing, which this is not really all that complete, but he took from opendata.utah.gov, you can download these public data sets, and the key thing about, here's like really the bottom line with Shiny, is let's say we have 12 months worth of data and we want to let the user show different data. You know, in regular RStudio, the user would have to be a programmer. They'd have to know how to run your program and change the parameters. Here in Shiny, you just give them a graphical interface and a pop-up. Oh, let's look at May. Okay, oh, there's May. Oh, May looks a lot more flat, so I'll call it then January. January looks like it, you know, was looks like there was more variation in temperature on elevation. He actually had some real interesting conclusions on this related to elevation. You would expect it to be colder higher up and warmer lower down, but it's actually reversed during the inversion periods here in Utah. There's actually links here. You can go look. I have this over on my GitHub account. I also have his analysis I posted on Google Docs, so you can go actually take a look at what he wrote up. I didn't write that part. I just did the Shiny part. And the main thing I want to get at now is if I can figure out my login. I think. Oh, hello. ShinyApps.io. Let me just try to log in here for a second. I usually was doing this from Linux, so it's not saved. That's one of my email addresses. Go ahead and spam it if you want. I don't really pay too much attention to that address anymore. I got that address when I used to work for Apple. Me.com is Apple. That's not it. Oh, I know. I was using my GitHub login. There. Okay, sorry. Okay, so you notice here, this is pretty cool. You can get a free account. So I'm going to wrap up here, and yeah, we're going to wrap up in just like 2 or 3 minutes here. Again, thanks for your patience. I normally am a real stickler for finishing things on time, and I apologize for a couple of stumbles and not having the full Shiny thing ready in RStudio. But now you have something to learn on your own. So this is the control panel or command center, whatever you want to call it, for ShinyApps.io. There's different plans. Let's go look at the plans real quick. They have an article here about it, but they have basically what they call basic, standard, and professional plans. So that the plan that I have is free, and it only gives me, well, maybe they've doubled it here. Maybe it's more, but I think it's only 25 hours a month of viewing of this. So you notice it's running, but most of the time, I mean, let's actually take a look at the panel behind it. This will show you, this month nobody's looked at it here, application usage. And it goes to sleep when I'm not actually using it. Metrics. Here's connections. Okay, so, oh, these are, yeah, I was thinking this is January 2003, 2004. You know, you can see right here this spike. I'm the first one that's looked at this here in January. But if you go back and look over the last 3 months, you'll see a bunch of spikes around November and December, because this is when we submitted this for this contest. And then this guy, Paul, was showing this to various employers, and it looks like somebody, well, this is when I tried to do the, yeah, this is when I tried to do this Hangout before, and the audio didn't work out very well. It shows memory usage, CPU, network usage. You know, if you have a much bigger application, you care about that stuff. And basically, look at my account, profile, tokens, domains. You know, not too much interesting to see here. Let me go to the dashboard and wrap this up here. So if we get back to the dashboard, This is, just the basic dashboard here, and it shows you how many applications are running, sleeping, or archived. And this actually pops up your actual application. So we'll go back and take a look at this. And yeah, let me just do one last thing here. Where did that do? I still have that browser with the examples here. Shiny examples. Shiny is so popular that just typing that takes you right there. So yeah, the last thing I'm going to leave you with is I would go look at this shiny.rstudio.com/gallery and just look at these different demonstrations. Like here, this one looks pretty cool. It has a lot of dots on the screen. And it's going to pop up here. And you can actually go look at the code. You can get code up here. And I believe it's going to be on the bottom. There's usually a button that lets you show the code. It's a parameter that you can set, and for some reason they're not enabling it here. I think get code. Yeah, get code takes you to a GitHub repo with the code. So, there you go. You can watch this. You can download the code. And again, you notice here's the server and UI, and this would probably be a real good one to look at because this has a database behind it too. So that's about it. That's what we're going to look at today. I just want to encourage you. I'm going to throw R bloggers up there. R-bloggers. If I could just type. We'll take a look at R bloggers. Let's look at the main page. I think if you're watching this Hangout, you must be interested in data science, and it's really a great field to get into. So I would encourage you to keep on learning R, but I would also, just in closing, strongly encourage you to learn Python. And even more strongly encourage you to follow R bloggers on Twitter and also subscribe to it. So yeah, I really appreciate your being here. I'm going to stop my screen sharing, and there I am. Come on, and you see it's still Christmas time up there. My lights broke, but I really appreciate everybody coming here. Tomorrow morning I'm going to do Spark. I'm really just going to run through the basic setup and configuration of Spark and just show you a basic program or two that I've implemented to test things out and maybe show you something I'm working on for work. So thanks for coming. I'm going to wrap it up, and I hope you guys have a great night or whenever you're watching this. And please tell your friends about this and subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much.